Well, I'm Miss Bonnie Parker, and this here's Mr. Clyde Barrow. We rob banks.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're looking at 10 common misconceptions and misunderstandings around famous true crime cases.
Would Dylan be a part of it? I couldn't imagine it. But could he be caught up in it in some way? Yes.
The Black Dahlia was an actress.
Los Angeles, California, January 15, 1947. It's an uncharacteristically cool morning in Leimert Park.
Pop culture seems to think that the Black Dahlia was some kind of Hollywood actress, but this is far from the truth. The murder happened in Los Angeles, near the heart of the film industry, and the media at the time was fascinated by the idea of young women coming to Hollywood to chase fame and meeting tragic ends.
Well, listen up. No reporters view the body. Photo men, finish taking your pictures now. Coroner's men, put a sheet on the body as soon as they're done.
Naturally, the newspapers sensationalized virtually every detail of the case. Reporters often described Short as an actress, but there is no evidence that she had ever worked in film, or even that she auditioned for a movie. But this image sold papers and added a lurid Hollywood glamour to the story, and alas, the legend was born.
She's a high school dropout, and she's kind of bouncing around from friend to friend, what the youngsters call couch surfing now. So she was really trying to figure out what it is that she wants to do with herself. When she came to LA, Beth describes herself as an aspiring actress. However, there's no evidence that she ever auditioned for any roles.
Charles Manson never committed violence himself.
We therefore intend to show that Charles Manson was, in fact, the dictatorial leader of the family, and that everyone in the family was slavishly obedient to him, and that eventually they committed the 7 Tate LaBianca murders at his command.
There are a ton of myths surrounding the Manson family, including the supposed fact that Charles Manson himself never personally committed violence. It's true that he did not touch the 6 victims of the Tate LaBianca murders, but to say that he never committed violence is outright false. For example, he once sliced musician Gary Hinman with a sword, and he shot a drug dealer named Bernard Crowe.
Did you kill Shay?
Hell no.
Did you cut Hinman's ear off?
Hell yes.
While Crowe survived, Manson intended to kill him. And in his memoir, Good Vibrations, My Life as a Beach Boy, Mike Love claims that Dennis Wilson once witnessed Manson killing a black man and shoving his body down a well. It's clear that, despite the enduring myth, Manson did indeed have a long history of violence.
He said, well, I was out at the ranch, meaning the Spawn Ranch, and I saw Charlie take an M16 rifle and blow a black cat in half, a human being, and stuff him down a well. He never said that to any of the authorities, never told it to anybody, but he told me.
Or by black cat, you're talking about a human being?
Exactly.
Bonnie and Clyde were romantic bank robbing outlaws.
Good afternoon, this is the Barrow Gang. Now, if everybody will just take it easy, nobody will get hurt.
When you think of legendary bank robbers, you probably think of Bonnie and Clyde. Only this young couple was less romantic bank robbers and more desperate and horribly violent small-time criminals in way over their heads. Heck, they barely even robbed banks. They mostly targeted small stores and gas stations, often netting only a few dollars at a time.
You know, Clyde, I read about you all in the papers, and I just get scared.
Now, Miss Parker, don't you believe what you read in all them newspapers?
They were also not romantic Robin Hood figures, as they never fought for a cause or gave money to the poor. The Robin Hood narrative grew out of widespread public resentment of banks during the Great Depression, not from anything Bonnie and Clyde actually did. And lastly, they were not cool folk heroes. They were thieves and murderers, claiming at least 12 innocent lives.
The most infamous outlaws of all were a pair of young lovers, whose 2-year crime spree included armed robbery, car theft, abduction, murder, and a series of dramatic gun battles across at least 11 states.
John Wayne Gacy buried all of his victims under his house.
John, I'm sorry to disturb you, but that hideous stench coming from under your house is getting worse.
It's moisture buildup in my crawl space. I'm taking care of it, I promise. Now, don't forget the 4th of July, right?
2 things are widely known about John Wayne Gacy. He worked as a clown, and he buried his victims in the crawl space of his house. And while it's true that many victims were buried under the house, it was certainly not all of them.
When they executed that search warrant, they went in the crawl space, and the very first shovel that they dug, they found human remains.
Police had finally unearthed the secrets that Gacy had thought would stay buried forever.
Gacy killed at least 33 young men and boys, but only 29 were found buried on his property. And even then, 26 were in the crawl space. 3 more were hidden elsewhere, like under the garage and driveway. The final 4 victims were not even buried at all, but dumped in the Des Plaines River, as Gacy had run out of room around his home.
One of the bodies found floating in the Des Plaines River in April 1979 was that of Rob Peast, the 15-year-old boy whose disappearance had ultimately led to Gacy's downfall.
Aileen Wuornos acted in self-defense.
People always look down their noses at hookers. Never give you a chance because they think you took the easy way out. When no one could imagine the willpower it took to do what we do. Walking the streets, night after night. Taking the hits and still getting back up.
Monster and Charlize Theron did a lot towards the public perception of Aileen Wuornos. Wuornos claims that she killed 7 men in self-defense while she engaged in sex work, and the story fits a compelling cultural archetype. The abused woman fighting back against predatory men, ignored and misunderstood by society. But the story is just that, a story.
No, I don't want to hear this, Lee.
I know. But you need to.
We can be as different as we want to be, but you can't kill people.
Says who?
The evidence consistently and overwhelmingly contradicts her self-defense narrative, often showing premeditation and opportunism. In other words, she murdered men for their money. Yes, Wuornos suffered a horrific childhood and suffered a degree of mental illness. That is undeniable. But the sympathy should stop there.
She was just utterly remorseless. She didn't just shoot them once, she'd shoot them 3 times, 4 times, 5 times.
They had all been shot with a small caliber weapon, namely a .22. And another trait that these victims shared was that they had all been robbed of their personal effects.
Ted Bundy had a law degree.
Ted Bundy. The FBI suspects him of being America's worst sex killer, murdering possibly 40 co-eds in 6 states over a 5-year period.
This serial killer is almost mythical in stature, having cultivated an image as an attractive, charismatic, and intelligent psychopath. There's even an enduring myth that Bundy had a law degree, and that's why he defended himself in court. But here's the thing. Anyone can defend themselves in court.
If there's any more delay in this court's proceeding occasioned by your voluntary acts, we're proceeding without you.
Since I have been in Dade County, I've been allowed to...
Don't shake your finger at me, young man. Don't shake your finger at me, young man.
Yes, Bundy briefly enrolled in law school in the early 1970s, but saying that he studied law is being super generous, as he attended classes for only a few months before dropping out. His grades were mediocre, and classmates later said that he didn't stand out in any way. So when he acted as his own attorney during his Florida murder trials, it wasn't because he was a qualified genius. It was because he wanted attention.
It's a tragedy for this court to see it's such a total waste, I think, of humanity that I've experienced in this court. You're a bright young man. You made a good lawyer. I'd love to have you practice in front of me, but you went another way, partner.
H.H. Holmes had an elaborate murder castle.
That man is Herman Webster Mudgett, known to the world as a notorious killer, H.H. Holmes.
It's one of the most fascinating stories in all of true crime. H.H. Holmes abducted people from the Chicago World's Fair, brought them back to his murder castle, and killed them with elaborate traps, secret rooms, body chutes, and giant acid pits. Some say he killed up to 200 people. Nah, this is a classic case of yellow journalism clouding facts and legend overtaking history.
There's a secret staircase that appears at the end of a hallway to nowhere. A windowless room completely lined with asbestos to muffle sound. Several secret chambers, and a vault which locks from the outside.
The murder castle did exist, but it wasn't a demonic, labyrinthian death trap, and the secret death rooms were never verified by investigators. And Holmes was indeed a murderer, but these were mostly personal and financial killings, not random murders of kidnapped tourists. In reality, that murder castle was nothing but a shoddy and poorly constructed hotel.
All eyes on the spectacle, no eyes are on him or the increasing list of missing women.
Jeffrey Dahmer was a reclusive loner.
Can I buy you a drink?
Who?
Both is.
The infamous Jeffrey Dahmer is often portrayed as a withdrawn and friendless recluse, an image that was amplified by news coverage and pop culture. But this myth goes against the very nature of his crimes. Dahmer was known for his attention-seeking humor in school, and people later reported Dahmer as being quiet and odd but friendly.
Oh, hey.
I gotta say, that smell is worse than ever.
Is it?
He had a job, conversed casually with neighbors and co-workers, and he frequently went out to bars and clubs. And he was certainly charismatic enough to pick up his victims, despite their potential reservations. Dahmer was reserved, but he was no Ed Gein. He was a functioning social participant. The horror isn't that he was invisible, it's that he was visible and no one realized what he was doing.
I really like pork chops. And my family sent me a bunch of meat. But I forgot to plug that little freezer in. And it all went bad.
The Columbine shooters were taking revenge.
Once you hate the bullies and no one does anything to defend you, you hate the people in the class that don't say anything. You hate the teacher that doesn't say anything. You hate the counselors that allow it to happen. They, in essence, end up hating the school, not just the bullies. They hate the school, and they want to kill the school.
It's one of the most persistent myths in all of true crime, that the Columbine shooters, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, were social outcasts seeking revenge on the jocks and popular students who tormented them. This explanation fit an easy moral framework and fed the media's hunger for a simple explanation.
I think that they didn't see that they had a lot going for them. They became isolated, and that isolation and then exposure to a lot of negative influences in their life that they chose to focus on, I think really took them towards a darker and darker place.
In reality, they weren't loner outcasts. In fact, Harris was quite popular, and they didn't go after specific individuals. In fact, their original plan was a bombing designed to kill as many people as possible. When this failed, they began shooting indiscriminately. The shooting was mainly the result of Harris's budding psychopathy and desire for domination, coupled with Klebold's general despair and hatred of the world.
Eric's secret journals and video recordings leave the clear impression of a disturbed mind, filled with grandiose and destructive schemes. Dylan, however, is a mystery.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Ed Gein had a high body count.
When the police first broke into Gein's house and discovered this crazy mass of body parts, their first assumption was Gein was a serial killer. It was only during his interrogation that he revealed that they were taken from the corpses he had dug up from the local cemetery.
Pop culture has warped Ed Gein into characters like Leatherface and Norman Bates, killers with far higher body counts than Gein himself. Gein is almost always remembered as one of America's most infamous serial killers, a depraved man who murdered people before skinning their bodies, Buffalo Bill style.
It rubs the lotion on its skin. It does this whenever it's told.
Mister, my family will pay cash. Whatever ransom you're asking for, they'll pay it.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
But while Gein technically fits the FBI's definition of a serial killer, his body count is far lower than you might expect. In reality, Gein killed just 2 people. What really cemented his place in legend were the masks, skin suits, and skull bowls, but these came from corpses that Gein grave robbed, not murder victims. It's still a horrific story, but the distinction must be made. Ed Gein was no Leatherface.
We think of Gein as this notorious American serial murderer, but in many ways he doesn't really fit that profile.
Did you believe these stories? Let us know in the comments.